I finally got approved for the Korean Air SkyPass Visa credit card. This is the 4th time I applied for this card, and I finally got it. And I think I know why, and I'll save that reasoning for later on in the video, because before then, this card has 3 different variations. In other words, there's 4 total Korean Air SkyPass Visa cards, and I want to go over them because there's a specific reason of why I chose mine, but there's also nuance we need to know regarding Korean Air and just how far these miles can actually go, and an overall just credit card strategy perspective. I have so much to share, so with that, let's get straight into it. Starting off with Korean Air. It may seem really specific for many, and for some, it's like, hey, there's no other choice out there. And what I'll say is it's important to know something regarding everything airlines and flights. So if you look at all the airlines in the world, there's 3 major alliances. They're known as One World, Star Alliance, as well as SkyTeam. If you've heard of these before, great. If not, very simply put, a part of these alliances are basically multiple airlines. And within those airlines, there's these kind of partnerships within them. So in other words, Korean Air is a part of the SkyTeam Alliance, which is partnered with Delta. So in other words, you can find, let's say, Delta flights on koreanair.com, but you can also find Korean Air Metal. In other words, you can book these Korean Air flights on delta.com. So it may seem like, oh, I'm taking a Delta flight, but when you get to the airport, the outside branding of the airplane, as you may be seen in your own experience, could be different versus the site you actually booked said flight. Similarly, a part of the SkyTeam Alliance is also partners like Air France, KLM, as well as Virgin Atlantic. If you see this train of thought, you can kind of get at, okay, hey, I may have Korean Air miles, but that doesn't mean it's only meant for, let's say, traveling from America to Korea, whether that's from the West Coast or East Coast or otherwise. I will say, though, there is a beautiful nonstop flight from Atlanta, Georgia to Incheon Airport, which is where Korean Air is headquartered at the ICN airport. And that is a very remarkable use case of mine. At the same time, it definitely can be leveraged to book, literally any other flight that you can do with Korean Air with these miles. Although these 3 alliances seem kind of like, oh, okay, it's very cut and dry between what partners are within each of their ecosystems. At the same time, what's crazy is that on Alaska Airlines, which is a part of the One World Alliance, and with Korean Air being part of the SkyTeam Alliance, you can actually book Korean Air flights through Alaska Airlines' app. And the pricing could differ, and it actually may make more sense to book on Alaska Airlines' site versus Korean Air's. Although the number of miles needed to actually make a booking may be cheaper elsewhere, the taxes and fees could also be higher. So it's kind of like, hey, do you want to pay more cash out of pocket, or are you willing to part with said miles? In general, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to all of these partners and airlines and rules and like kind of sweet spot redemptions and etc. With that said, there's a link in the description below. It's absolutely free for a free 15-minute one-on-one chat. I'd love to get to know you and also answer any questions I can because I love talking about this stuff. So with that, let's get straight into the pure credit card section. So when it comes to these credit cards, they all earn the same currency. They're going to be miles to be redeemed on Korean Air's website. And given this whole partner ecosystem route, there are ways to book not just like purely Korean Air flights, but kind of the flights that you may see, hey, a Delta airline flight that just happens to be on Korean Air and vice versa. So the point is, that's one part. The second part is, well, what are these miles worth? The thing is, it's going to depend on the redemption. So I'll show as a quick example of a very vanilla redemption from nonstop America to Korea and how much this would cost in both cash and then what it is in miles. So here we have the Korean Air app, and we're going to look at the difference between booking with cash and miles to understand what could that representative cent per point value, in other words, how much in cash is each Korean Air mile worth. So here we have Atlanta to Incheon, April 14th, which at the time of recording is a little more than a month away. 1 adult, economy class, and flexible dates. So this is in cash. We have, hey, this flexible dates, these are different dates, and these are different cost options. So roughly 1,400 just for easy math is what we'll benchmark it at. And I'm going to put direct flights only just to see if it changes. It doesn't. So it's $13.91 and 90 cents. We'll just concentrate on the first one where it's 12:30, middle of the day Atlanta. You'll land at 4:50 p.m. in Incheon with this nonstop 15-hour change flight. So I'm just going to click, let's say this. What I want to understand is, yes, the currency is in USD. Is the final cost going to include taxes and fees in addition to the $13.91? There was some personal information, so I can confirm that $13.91 and 90 cents was the final cost, including all taxes and fees. And so now coming to book with miles, one way again, Atlanta Incheon, same date. So it's April 15th. Let's make it the 14th. So a one-to-one comparison. Let's go ahead and search. As we can see, we also get the glimpse of, oh, hey, this is how the calendar looks like. So it looks like, E for economy is what I'm guessing. So if we look at this legend over here, E is economy class. So then the 15th, it says seats not available. And basically this over here. And so let's go ahead and search. And over here, that same flight, so if you see this 12:30, nonstop, you click this, 35,000 miles. But what we see is also roughly $300 in taxes and fees. So if we look at just a very high level example of, hey, $1,400 cash, and then if we subtract this roughly $300 in taxes and fees, it's like we're getting $1,100 worth of, let's say pure flight value for this 35,000 miles exchange. And some simple maths on screen is that we're basically getting $1,100, which is 110,000 pennies, divided by 35,000 miles. So in other words, the cents per mile or cents per point value in this redemption scenario is above 3 cents per point. So in English, if you're getting, let's say, 3% back on some purchase, then it's 3% back in terms of, let's say, a currency like miles. So then 3 times 3.14 in terms of the cents per point means it's like 9%, 9.42. So almost like 9.5% cashback value for each and every dollar spent with respect to this redemption scenario. The biggest, most important thing to know about the Korean Air credit card is just the fact that in today's landscape, Korean Air is not a partner with any credit card that exists, whether American Express, Chase, Capital One, etc. It is not a transfer partner. They used to be with Chase almost 10 years ago, where they were looked at just like how Hyatt Hotels has so much value when you redeem points through Hyatt's program. Korean Air was the same way. But because they're not a partner, it really boils down to, well, how do you earn Korean airline miles if you're not flying them? If you're not flying them, we have credit cards today. But if you don't have one or the other, and you can't transfer miles to their program, what else could you do? What you could do is, there's this one way, but let's cover the cards first, the rationale, and I'll save it for later on. So with that, let's get into our cards. There are 4 different variants of the SkyPass credit cards, 3 on the personal side, 1 on the business side, and they have the full name, but really it's just a color difference. So the first one, for example, is Sky Blue, where it has no annual fee. The sign-up offer is 10,000 miles after $1,000 in spend in the first 90 days. Although it sounds like 10% back on your spend, depending on how you use those miles, 10,000 miles may not get you everywhere all across the globe, but they could also be a nice cherry on top. And if that affords you, let's say, $300 more worth of travel, then it's like you're getting 30% back on that same $1,000 of spend that you would do anyways. Outside of the intro offer, we're looking at a standard daily earning rate of 2x miles on each and every dollar spent on streaming services, as well as ride shares such as Uber and Lyft, and 1x everywhere else. The Sky Blue is not a Visa signature card. In other words, the benefits that you get from a Visa card versus Visa Signature versus Visa Infinite, they could differ. But outside of the Sky Blue, every other card we're about to go over is a Visa Signature card. Moving on to the SkyPass Visa Signature card, that's what it's called. It's not called like the green color or like whatever, emerald green or whatever color this is. The point being that it basically has a sign-up bonus offer of 40,000 miles after 4K in spend in the first 90 days. So it's that same 10%, but the annual fee here is not $0, it's $99. When it comes to earn rate, we're looking at 2x miles on Korean Air flights, as well as 2x on hotels, as well as dining, which includes like takeout eligible delivery services like Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, etc., and 1x everywhere else. There's 2 more cards to cover, and I'll get into my personal analysis for this card and why I got it soon enough. And super quick before moving on, this same card over here also comes with 2 KAL, like Korean Air lounges, accesses each and every year, as well as no foreign transaction fees, which I would expect with this type of card. Moving on from there, we have the select version of this card, officially known as the SkyPass Select Visa Signature card. And this one has a whopping annual fee of $450. The sign-up bonus offer is 60,000 miles after 5K in spend in the first 90 days. And for that $450 annual fee, this is what we're looking at getting. The earning structure we're looking at is 3x miles earned per dollar spent on Korean Air tickets, as well as 2x on literally any other flights that are booked not through Korean Air, as well as hotels, rental cars, dining, and 1x everywhere else. The select version of this card comes with the same benefits as this card right here, which basically is those 2 KAL lounge accesses per year, no foreign transaction fees. We're also looking at two $25 duty-free shopping coupons. You get this each and every year, which is an interesting perk, but it kind of makes sense if you're shopping through duty-free shops when you're traveling airport to airport. We also get a common perk, which is pretty standard at this high of an annual fee type of level, where it's $120 to be used towards a global entry / TSA pre-check. And finally, we get up to $200 back in the form of statement credits to go towards travel purchases. The $200 seems pretty easy to get back, where as long as the merchant category code classifies as airlines, hotels, or rental cars, that works towards this $200 travel reimbursement each and every year. If you think about getting this card, the two things I would note is that first, we have a spending bonus where, for example, each and every year when we spend the first $15,000, we get 5K miles deposited into our account. And then when we spend in that same 12-month period, 35,000 miles, we get 10K miles deposited into our account. So in English, let's say today is, day one, get the card, great, right? Like literally in my situation, it's fantastic, finally. And fast forward 12 months, let's say our second annual fee hits. As long as we pay that annual fee, and let's say we spent $35,000 cumulatively, we would have got 5K miles when we hit 15K, and then an extra 10K miles when we hit 35K. So simply put, in first year, outside of the sign-up bonus and whatever miles you would earn through multipliers through spend, we'd be looking at 35K in spend to get a bonus of 15K miles. I wouldn't chase it, but it's a bonus that exists. And the biggest thing that rubbed me the wrong way, to be very honest, is they do have Priority Pass Select membership, but it's not unlimited like a lot of our American credit cards. It's going to be 4 passes each year, and you can have guests, which basically take up these spaces. So you can go, let's say, family of 4 one time, cool. You can go 4 times alone, great. But it's not unlimited how it kind of maybe more generally is for American credit card users. Now, right before I get into the analysis section, the business variant is essentially a card with a $99 annual fee. Sign-up bonus is 50K miles after 5K in spend in the first 90 days. In terms of earning structure, it definitely supports more of your business expenditure, where outside of the categories of earning 2x miles per dollar spent on Korean air tickets and 1x everywhere else, there's a lot of other 2x categories. We're looking at 2x miles on each and every dollar spent on the gas station category, EV charging category, cell phones, office supply stores, as well as dining / restaurant / takeout services like Uber Eats, etc. For the annual fee of $99, we're looking at no foreign transaction fees, 2 KAL lounge visits per year, and finally, third, we get 5% off each and every year for a ticket booking for you and a companion up to, seems like sky's the limit. So if you spend 5K, 5% back is $250 back, which can definitely supersede the annual fee spent. So essentially the business card and the card that I have, they both have the same annual fee. The reason I chose the personal version versus the business version wasn't really anything fancy. It was just like, okay, hey, maybe I can increase my approval odds in this fashion. And the reason is, with the US Bank, who's the issuing bank behind this Korean Air credit card, there's literally no other cards I had in general when I was applying for this card from the get-go. But eventually, I did get one card, the Kroger credit card, where it's also through US Bank. And I think because I had some history with them finally, I was able to get this approval like eventually, right? So that's one aspect. Credit score, otherwise, I've heard as low as 600 approvals from, different data points online. You don't need a stellar one, but at the same time, it seems like no history with the US Bank, it'll be that much tougher, which was basically my experience, but now I'm on the other side and approved. When it comes to the no annual fee version of the card, to me, I'm like 10,000 miles. Because I'm not living in Asia, where we can actually use those miles to go from, let's say, point A to point B within Asia very reasonably, I was like, okay, this is a card that I'm going to have to manage in my brain space with no annual fee, where it's cool to get 10K miles just like that by doing spend we're going to do anyways. But I was like, all right, what else can we do that's that much better? And what's better than that is the version that I got, where it's 40K miles after 4K in spend in the first 90 days, where now we have the third option of 450 annual fee, where I was like, all right, by the time I, do the math of 450 minus, let's say, $200 back in statement credits for that travel expenditure, where we get kind of like a credit each and every year, and it seems super flexible, which is great. But for that $250 annual fee, I'm like, okay, well, Priority Pass, only 4 visits a year, it's not worth it. And we have better American cards like your Capital One Venture X, Amex Platinum, Chase Sapphire Reserve that give us this Priority Pass Select Access Unlimited. And more than that, I was like, okay, well, 2 KAL Lounge, visits a year, and look, they're great, but I'm not going to get a specific card. Like even the Amex Centurion Lounge, I have the Platinum. It's not like I want the Platinum to get into those lounge. It's just a great cherry on top for me personally. The $120 to global entry, TSA pre-check, again, same thing as Priority Pass. We already have it. It's kind of like overlap. And again, to get this card where you can get other cards without, juggling the annual fee and all these other perks, there's just better options. At the same time, I'm not looking at spending a whole lot of money on this card where, whether it's a keeper card or not, it really comes down to the value you're getting. Like just that one perk alone where you save 5% for you and a companion each and every year, if you're spending real cash with Korean Air, you just do the math. You'll get back your money just like that. So point being, it's just not for me personally. And the biggest thing is getting these miles. It's like not a joke. It's not easy whatsoever. Where Marriott points, the part that I wanted to save until now, was this kind of edge case where basically when you do this 3-to-1 ratio, when you transfer 60K Marriott points to, let's say, whatever airline program, in our case, Korean Air, you get a 5K bonus in terms of miles. So mathematically, 60K to miles would be 20K airline miles, but every 60K transfer, you'll get plus 5K. So instead of 20, we'll get 25K miles. And so for many years, when Korean Air was not a partner with Chase, I would do it in this fashion when I was traveling for work, staying at Marriott hotels, amassing so many Marriott points. But instead of just kind of spending or burning them on Marriott nights, I was like, okay, let me convert them into miles that I could use very, in an advantaged way for literally everything I was doing at the time and even now. Speaking to the practical nature of using these miles realistically, I'm looking at availability. And I'm not going to say it's easy to find, but whether it's Korean Air or other airlines, it's been super tough, especially as this space, as we're sharing the knowledge and, just a lot of folks getting in and demand versus supply. And there's, I'm sure, other business tactics in, the background by the actual companies. The point being that, hey, it's not, going to be the easiest, like, hey, you have Korean Air miles and there's no other partners that transfer to them in terms of credit cards. So it's going to be easy to find availability because no one has these miles. But that is not the case in my experience that I've seen. So just some extra food for thought. And again, it's not Korean Air. It's all across the board that I've been seeing in general. Of course, your summers, your Christmas of the year, all those busy times are going to be tough in general for availability. But one more data point from yours truly for you to consider before, whether getting this card or just kind of involving yourself in the Korean Air ecosystem. The Kroger card by US Bank is actually pretty crazy, and I say deserves a space in everyone's wallet, period. It has no annual fee, and there's a lot more to get to know, so I'll leave a video over here, and I'll see you there.